Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Michaela Fernando and joining us via Zoom is sign language interpreter Brian De Cruz. Before we head into more news in detail, here are a look at your headline-making stories for tonight.
Prime Minister calls for action to strengthen Dhamma education of children. Protest against handing over Nindagam lands of the Galgamua Viharaya to multinational companies. Was the loss caused by reduction in sugar taxes a scam or a decision of the government?
බදු ප්‍රතිපත්ති අනුව අඩු වැඩි කිරීම තුළ කාට හරි කෙනෙකුට වාසි වෙනවා කාට හරි වෙනකොට පාඩු වෙනවා.
මේ සභාපති මේ කම්පැනියයි මේ තීන්දුව ගත්ත අයයි අන්තර් සම්බන්ධයක් නැද්ද? මේකම තමයි මහ බැංකුව බැඳුම් කර වංචාවේ සිද්ධ වුනේ.
Opposition opposes new circular issued by the Finance Ministry.
මේකෙන් සිදුවන්නේ කැබිනට්ුවේ සිටින සියලුම ඇමතිවරු කිසිම බලයක් නැති පමයින් ගානට වැටෙනවා.
Taking a look at your top story, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa attended an event at the Madampe Galmuruwa Sri Sunandarama Temple today.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa attended an event at the Sunandarama Temple to unveil a stupa and declare open the development area within its premises. The Mahasangha, including Anunayaka of the Siam sect of the Untitled Chapter, Most Venerable Dimul Kumure Vimla Dharmathero, attended the event.
In my view, it is our responsibility to create a society that is closely linked to our religion and the temple, instead of allowing the society and the new generation to distance themselves from religion. If we distance ourselves from the temple, then the country will head into a disaster. As Buddhists, I believe it is a must to attend Dhamma school on Sundays. I believe that children should visit the temple either once a week, once a month, or at least on a Poya day. Otherwise, children will grow up without religious qualities. The society will lose that quality as well. It will create distance between us and the temple. This situation must change.
Now, incidents of environmental destruction continue to plague the country at a time when the need to protect the ecosystem is more important than ever before.
A protest was staged today opposing moves to lease out Nindagam lands belonging to the Galagamua Ahatueva Nakolanage Rajamahaviharaya to multinational companies. The demonstration was staged at Palukadavala. The protesters demanded authorities to immediately stop the continuous deforestation taking place at the hands of multinational companies.
මේ කැලය එක එක බහුජාතික සමාගම් හෝ ඒවා තරව්කාරයන් මේ වෙලාවේ විකුණමින් කපමින් ඉන්නවා කනගාටු දායකයි
අලින්ට ඉන්න තියෙන භූමියේ වැටවල් ගහලා වෙන් කරපුවාම අලි ගම් වදිනවා. දැන් මේ කරන්න හදන්නේ කෘතිමව අලි සහ මිනිස්සු අතර සටනක් ඇති කරන්න.
දෙන්නාට ගහන්න අධ්‍යක්ෂලා ගන්නේ මේකට ඒ තරම් හොඳ ලස්සන සුන්දර පරිසරයක්. ඒකට දැන් මේ අපිට හේන් කොටන්න බෑ. මේවා ඩෝසර් කරලා මේ බහුජාතික සමාගම් වල දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, locals claim that an unidentified group has destroyed kumbuk trees on either side of the sluice canal of the Kantale reservoir in recent days. Our correspondent reported that around 30 kumbuk trees had been destroyed in this manner. Upon inquiries made by Newsfirst, the Department of Irrigation said that a project is underway to widen the sluice of the Kantale reservoir. Officials at the Department of Irrigation said that the State Timber Corporation is removing the plants on either side of the sluice legally. When Newsfirst made inquiries from the State Timber Corporation, officials said that the plants are being removed by an entity that had entered into a contract with the state authority. The Dharanyagala People's Voice movement has filed a complaint with the police against illegal sand mining taking place in the area. The complainants point out that the racket has been taking place without obtaining the approval of the authorities, despite claiming to have received approval from the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau. This mound of sand is now depleting. We only have to plead to God's Saman of Kataragama. These people must be cursed. It would be better if we were mentally retarded, because then we wouldn't understand the environmental degradation that is taking place around us. This destruction affects the entire country and its people.
Meanwhile, a youth expressed her views on the environmental destruction taking place on the borders of the Sinharaja forest. This was during the Sirasa Lakshapati program yesterday. Officers attached to the Rakwana police recorded a statement from the youth at her residence this afternoon.
Nature belongs to all of us. My house is located on the borders of the Sinharaja forest. I am forced to witness the Sinharaja forest being destroyed throughout the day. People might have heard of the 3 elephants who inhabit the Sinharaja forest, but we have no clue on the whereabouts of 1 elephant. 2 elephants continue to inhabit the forest. This area is identified as an elephant corridor. There is no greenery in this area now. The endemic purple-faced leaf monkey once used to live in the forest. I think they are under the threat of extinction. Animals have the right to live just like humans. We must protect that right. Officials might not be taking steps to stop this as they might be busy. This is taking place across the country. Don't people have sufficient houses? Destroying the environment is similar to demolishing our homes. Wildlife Minister C.B. Ratnayaka responded to the views expressed by a contestant during the Lakshapati program on Sirasa TV yesterday.
I saw that a contestant on the Sirasa Lakshapati program had said that she is witnessing deforestation at the Sinharaja forest. When we try to intervene and solve those issues, they show us their title deeds. Some deeds show that those lands have been in their possession for a long time. The people with such title deeds have the right to engage in any activity on that plot of land. There is no political interference over that matter. Houses cannot be constructed inside a forest. That is true. If they have been constructing a house for a long time, we have allowed them to complete it. But they can't damage the Sinharaja forest. They must be mindful of that. I wish to inform that child that she must speak based on accurate information. Although politicians continue to make such claims, isn't it politicians themselves who fail to provide accurate information to the general public on such issues? Are these details that were uncovered within 24 hours valid for these incidents as well? 5,000 acres of land in the Rambakanoya cleared. Indigenous community moves to court to protect lands from multinational companies. 1,000 mangrove plants destroyed in the Anaviludava Ramsar wetlands. 30 acres of land in the Ailadi Reserve in Kantale razed. Forest lands along the Dahayagala Elephant Pass destroyed. Forest lands in the Seruvilla and Tirikona Madhu reserves cleared. The destruction does not end there. Trees in the Sengamua Reserve in Lahugala cut down. Deforestation hits the Hantana ecosystem. Incidents of deforestation near the Sinharaja forest had been reported on previous occasions as well. Lands in Runakanda in Agalavatta cleared. Do you remember the issue that arose due to the construction of a road bordering the Sinharaja Reserve? Environmental destruction reported on the 6th of March at the Sinharaja Forest Reserve. If you have details regarding these incidents of environmental destruction, make it known to the general public. Despite what anyone says, we must not forget that the people are well aware of these incidents that have continued to plague the country. In the event that politicians fail to respond to these incidents of environmental destruction, Mother Nature will.
From the moment this government came into power, they started their work based on a policy that is centered around environmental destruction. They began to hunt down mangroves in the country, ecosystems and sensitive environments. A notable incident is the destruction of the Singharaja forest that is considered to be a World Heritage Site. Even the smallest child in the country knows that this government is destroying the environment. Recently, a child who appeared on the Sirasa Lakshapati program made an emotional address. Children are emotional and they have no political affiliation when they speak. She said that her village is near the Singharaja forest and that she continues to witness destruction with her own eyes. She said that she saw hotels being constructed and the environment being destroyed. She also noted that she came on the show to make this known and to request for this to be stopped. After she said that, now they have begun to go after this child. They have begun to attack her on the media. The government is now engaged in these shameful acts. These attacks cannot conceal the truth. I saw the destruction that is taking place at the Singharaja forest with my very own eyes. We visited those areas on the 5th of this month. 2 hotels are being built. Water sources are depleting. When we went there, we saw bulldozers with our very own eyes. They were using explosives to break down rocks. So we would like to tell the people who are attempting to wash the dirty linen of the government that there is no point in what they are doing because their clothes have come off. If possible, use at least that dirty piece of linen and shroud the government with it. Everyone can see the true quality of the government. Even the children of this country can witness it. The leaders of the indigenous community can also witness this. The entire country can see this. They have prepared illegal title deeds with support from politicians and high-ranking officials and are destroying the Singharaja forest. They have cut down large trees and set the others on fire. We have video footage to substantiate these claims. This government is destroying the environment and they cannot deny it.
As incidents of deforestation continue to rise, the President has highlighted the importance of halting such incidents and implementing the government's policy of protecting the environment. Tonight, we once again air the statements of the President during yesterday's discussion with the village program to remind the stance of the President to officials who have failed to take relevant action.
Sometimes I see newspaper reports indicating that 1,000 or 5,000 acres of forest lands have been destroyed. What are officials doing until 1,000 or 5,000 acres of forest lands are being destroyed? Action must be taken immediately after the first tree is cut down.
In more local news, the Attorney General's approval has been sought on the legitimacy of the agreements to develop the Colombo Port's West Terminal with the involvement of 2 companies named by India and Japan. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority chairman stated that the agreement would come into effect in the future.
The cabinet paper states that it should be given to 2 parties named by India and Japan. Accordingly, discussions were held with the Adani company and the relevant entities. The Attorney General's approval has been sought on the legitimacy of the agreements. We will take the necessary steps after receiving the relevant advice. We can clearly state that Japan is irrelevant in this matter. It is only India and the Adani company that are involved. We can see that it is nearing its final stages. It is the Adani company that is going to carry out this project. Its local company has been identified as John Keels. This is very clear.
They are planning to give away the West Container Terminal to India. We have learnt that certain documents have been handed over to the Attorney General to consider the legal aspect of this. This is not a problem surrounding legality. Any agreement is legal. The Hambantota port was not given away through a fraudulent agreement to China. There is no need to examine the legality of it, but they have sent it to the Attorney General to consider the legal aspect of this. They can then claim that they have received legal clearance to go ahead with this, but that is not our problem. The problem is that the Colombo Port's West Container Terminal must not be given to India. The port that lies in China must be reacquired by our country. That is our concern. If they were the rulers of the country at the time of constructing the Kala, however, they would have claimed that it is impossible to construct it single-handedly.
A father's love is protective and caring, surrounding our motherland with the protection and strength of a father is our ocean.
The Sea of Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, various views were expressed today on the sugar scam that cost more than 15 billion rupees in tax revenue to the state.
This company had imported 26,000 metric tons of sugar in nearly 1,000 containers through cargo ships. These stocks were imported immediately after the import levy was reduced. After the Wilmar company imported sugar, Satosa purchased those stocks at either 120, 127 or 122 rupees a kilo. But they were instructed to sell those stocks at 85 rupees. Satosa had to bear these losses as they had to sell sugar at a lower rate than what they purchased. The losses faced by the general public has not been calculated yet. The losses amounts to more than 16.2 billion rupees. It is clear that a scam had occurred here. Otherwise, why was the Satosa chairman removed from his position? The Satosa chairman was removed from his post and appointed to the Sri Lanka Standards Institute by the president only after the issue pertaining to the sugar scam was raised in parliament. This is a clear indication of the irregularities that have taken place. Satosa purchased sugar at high rates despite knowing the ill effects of the move. Isn't there a connection between the chairman, this company and the decision makers? It is a corrupt group that was involved in this. This was the same manner in which the central bank bond scam was carried out. Arjuna Mahendran of the central bank decided to change the interest rates of treasury bonds and informed his son-in-law how he must purchase the bonds. That scam involved the father-in-law and the son-in-law. This scam involves a person identified as Sajad. There is a connection here. In the bond scam, the interest rates of treasury bonds were changed to allow the son-in-law to receive benefits. In the sugar scam, the levy on imported sugar was reduced to allow their henchmen to line their pockets. They looted the bank while these individuals looted the sugar. The law must be enforced against relevant individuals after carrying out an investigation into this.
We challenge this government to appoint a special presidential commission to investigate this large-scale sugar scam. It is essential that recognized individuals are appointed to this commission. We also request the government to conduct a forensic audit. Who benefited from this deal? Who made the decision that led to this large-scale scam?
According to the tax policy, when taxes are increased or decreased, businessmen make profits or losses. That is natural. For example, if we increase the price of petrol tomorrow, there are 1,400 petrol sheds in the country. The entire stock of petrol at these sheds will be sold at that new price. So the owner of the shed will make an additional profit. Similarly, if the prices of petrol are reduced, they must suffer the losses. This is something that takes place naturally with the fluctuation of the tax rates according to the government's tax policy. The people who calculate sums and say that this is the amount of losses that they suffer are nothing but political henchmen.
The order for the sugar had been placed at the president's residence. So we don't know much about this incident. The central bank under this government reported to the Committee on Public Accounts in Parliament that the government has suffered a loss of 16,000 million rupees or 16 billion rupees. So we don't need to look any further. We call for legal action to be filed immediately against those responsible for this.
At that time, there were large stocks of sugar at warehouses. According to the information that I have, there were more than 70 metric tons. So at a time like this, there was a need to reduce the tax on sugar to import more stocks to the country. If a ship was brought down, was it done in good faith or was it done as a scam? We will investigate these matters as a government, and if anyone or a group is found to have done something wrong, we as the government and public representatives are of the opinion that the law must be enforced against them.
The members of the director board of the Shangri-La Hotel are good friends of these people. Besides the sugar scam, this government also paved the way for these businessmen to maintain a monopoly over the supply of sugar. From January 2020, this company, Wilmar, had only brought down 3% of the country's sugar requirement. The other companies had brought down 97% of the sugar needed for the country. But after this gazette was issued, the Wilmar company had imported 60% of the sugar, while the other companies had only imported somewhere around 30%. We are suspicious that if a ship carrying a stock of sugar brought down by the company closely affiliated with this government was docked in Sri Lanka when the taxes on sugar were suddenly reduced.
More headline-making news on the other side of this short commercial break. Stay tuned to News First. Welcome back to the news. Now, cabinet approval will no longer be necessary for agreements between state-owned entities. This is after ministry secretaries were vested with powers to approve agreements between two state-owned entities without the approval of the cabinet.
In a circular, Finance Secretary S.R. Artikala said agreements between ministries, departments and state-owned enterprises can be signed with the approval of ministry secretaries. The circular emphasizes that such matters should not be forwarded for the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers. The Finance Secretary has been vested with the powers to resolve issues arising from Cabinet approval projects that are taking place with the involvement of bilateral and multilateral agencies. According to the circular, the Finance Secretary has also been authorized to issue letters of credit, letters of comfort and treasury guarantees on behalf of state-owned enterprises. This would ensure lenders, including banks, that the state-owned entity can and will meet its financial obligations. Meanwhile, changes to ongoing projects that previously required approval from the Cabinet can now be made with the approval of a committee chaired by the Finance Secretary.
Still in local news, leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa says that the new circular, which permits state-owned institutions to sign agreements on development projects in the future without the permission of the cabinet, is an encouragement for fraud and corruption.
Usually, you have to inform the subject minister and seek approval from the cabinet when large-scale projects and development agendas are carried out. However, the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance issued a new circular recently which will not require the approval of neither the subject minister nor the cabinet to carry out such projects. This will make all cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister mere puppets with no power. This is not an attempt to strengthen development projects or to expedite them. They are gearing up for a massive robbery similar to the sugar scam. Even when we come here, the people here ask us about Mr. 10% and Mr. 20%. These are individuals who receive their cut of 10% and 20% from every deal. Now the general public ask whether this is a display of granting power to them. The process maintained thus far is that the minister of the relevant line ministry should approve the project. It must be approved by the cabinet as well. But this latest circular indicates that the approval process has bypassed the minister and the cabinet. A new system has been put in place in which decisions regarding amendments to the project, increasing the loans for these projects, halting the projects and extending the loan repayment period are granted without the approval of the cabinet. This is an attempt to carry out projects through a certain group by disregarding the cabinet and the ministers.
මේවා සිදු කරගන්න දරන උත්සාහය.
For the people, by the people.
The youth who went missing from a holiday resort in Rambuda, Kotmale on Friday was found injured this evening. This was during a joint operation carried out by the Sri Lanka Army and Special Task Force and the Sri Lanka Police.
A group including a 33-year-old individual had visited Adams Peak on the 11th of this month. A group of 7, including the individual who went missing, had visited a holiday resort in Rambuda the following day. They had reached the area by travelling through Nuwara. Police said that the 33-year-old had disappeared following a party held at the holiday resort. A search operation launched by the police to locate the missing individual proved futile until last evening. Accordingly, 37 army officers of the Singha Regiment and 15 Nuwara Special Task Force personnel joined hands with the police to support the search operation today. Our correspondent reported that the search operation was carried out covering an area of 50 acres of the forest reserve. The missing individual was found lying in the forest reserve this evening. According to officers involved in the search operation, the individual had suffered multiple injuries. He has been admitted to the Nuwara General Hospital for further treatment.
Meanwhile, an incident where a dog was shot to death is being reported from the Abhayapura area in Anuradhapura.
According to locals, an area resident had opened fire on 3 dogs using an air rifle last evening. The same individual had opened fire again on one of the 3 dogs this morning. The dog had then succumbed to its injuries while 2 other dogs were injured in last evening's shooting. The Anuradhapura police are carrying out further investigations into the incident.
The third and final ODI between Sri Lanka and the West Indies is being played at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua. Batting first, Sri Lanka is at 143 for the loss of 5 wickets at the 30th over. West Indies won the toss and elected to field. Captain Dimuth Karunaratne and Danushka Gunatilaka opened the Sri Lankan innings. West Indies have already clinched the series 2-0. And that is a wrap of Primetime News for today. For all these stories and more, log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. Take care and good night.